I'm Gorilla Monsoon.
Well, it sucks to be you.
Will you stop? This other piece of garbage is Bobby the Brain Heenan.
The host.
Oh, get a life, would you? You are not the host. This isn't even our show.
What show is it?
Let me check, the Hot Tag Podcast.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, no one has.
Well, who hosts it?
I don't know, some guy named Chris.
What's his deal?
Not really sure, well, he likes Shawn Michaels. Oh, will you stop? What's funny about that?
I hope he doesn't lose his smile.
No, stop it. This is serious.
You mean Syracuse?
And welcome to the Hot Tag Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hot Tag Wrestling Show here on the RTB Philly Sports Network, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Chris Francesco. Joining me, per normal, per usual, my good friend, and yours too, if you play your cards right, George Rogers. What's going on, man?
Hey, there's always room in my phone for another friend.
There's always room for a contact that I won't reach out to.
Yeah, there's always room for a contact that I'm going to ignore in 5 months.
So welcome, everybody. We apologize for last week. Both of our schedules were just crazy. We tried to fit a show in, but it just did not work out. So it definitely wasn't for a lack of trying. George had a busy weekend, as did I. But look, we're here. We're back on schedule. It's Monday night, and we are doing week 3 of the Monday Night Wars, which we call the War Room. And it's actually really irritating, George, that we're in the 3rd week of the Monday Night Wars, and we have yet to have a head-to-head.
We've had one head-to-head, kind of, sort of, so far. But we're 3 weeks in. I think the real question on everybody's mind is, why is Vince afraid of WCW?
I mean, you could probably say that might actually be a thing.
Just go head to head, you coward.
Do you think that maybe this was a designed plan by Bischoff? Maybe they saw what was coming up in the first month or so of possible, head-to-head matchups, and he saw, on the schedule that Raw was taped or on a Thursday, so why not just go right at it right away?
I mean, it's entirely possible. It's a great way to get some momentum, to get a fan base if you don't have people to compete with, because then people who would be looking for wrestling on a Monday will just, go down the old Channel 25 and catch on the TNT as opposed to Channel 40 on USA. At least that's how it was in my area.
Right.
That's what the channels were.
So we are covering the Monday Night War the week of September 25th, 1995. And this is a significant one, I guess you could say, for Monday Nitro. It's the first ever, Nitro after a pay-per-view. Fall Brawl happened the night before. So we're here to cover that Nitro. We got that big War Games match between the Hulkamaniacs and the Dungeon of Doom. Despite the issues between Randy Savage and Lex Luger, of course, the Dungeon of Doom were brothered by the team led by Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan gets a chance to fight Taskmaster one-on-one in a double ring cage. This was interrupted, of course, by the Giant of all people, who beat down Hogan and effectively actually murdered a man live in the ring by snapping Hulk Hogan's neck. If the Dungeon was bad enough for the Hulkster, I guess the second coming of Andre the Giant was not going to make things any better. I actually did really enjoy Fall Brawl, but the fallout to that pay-per-view, George, not that good.
Yeah, Fallout Brawl was not good.
It just wasn't the best.
They're still kind of, I'm defending this shit. they're still like finding their footing in terms of like a weekly show. It's their first weekly show after a pay-per-view. So they're trying to figure out what I guess the best course of action is. And if this is what they're coming to the table with, if there would have been competition on this night,
right,
I would have just watched anything else.
I just would have watched anything.
I would just watch an episode of The Commish on ABC.
Yes, I know.
I think that might have been on.
Yeah, right. So like we said, this is the September 25th edition of Monday Nitro. They are live from Florence, South Carolina. 5,000 fans, but according to the Observer, you take that for what it is. Only 2,000 were paid. But again, this is the early stages of WCW. And, we all know that it took about a year or so for the company to even make $1 a profit. So I'm not surprised, because even when we watch these Nitros, George, I'm sure you noticed as well, when they pan to that audience, it looks like it's in the smallest of arenas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's kind of like an old adage, and it's probably something that Ted Turner probably agrees with in this era of where they're at, is you got to spend money to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, oh, so Ted, and Ted just has unlimited funds, basically, especially 90s Ted Turner. He just had money on top of money. He's like, do whatever you got to do.
Yep.
We're making a live wrestling show. We're gonna put Vince McMahon out of business.
On the other side,
it's like a hick, but
it's okay. It's okay. Well, I mean, Southern Company.
Yeah. Well,
on the other channel, a couple days later, but it's still Raw, so we have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
WWF is live from the Grand Center in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is the first live Monday Night Raw during the Monday Night War. So it's not on Monday, but it is live. So we have that, correct?
Raw Thursday, baby.
We get a video package to open Raw of Shawn Michaels and Diesel winning the tag team titles the previous night at the In Your House pay-per-view. We then see that Jim Cornette found a contractual loophole and brought his lawyer to meet with the WWF interim, I guess you could say, president, Gorilla Monsoon, earlier that day. And because of that loophole, Owen Hart and Yokozuna, what a great tag team, once again became the tag team champions. But then we do see that Mr. Monsoon is making them defend the titles live on Monday Night Raw. Your commentators for the show is, of course, Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler, and they run down the show, what's to come. British Bulldog versus The Undertaker. Lawler also tells us that the name of Cornette's attorney is Clarence Mason.
Oh, Clarence Mason. As opposed to now where it's Stephen Pineau. Although we'll say if this was this day and age with Cornette, he probably would have actually just brought out like the real Stephen Pineau with him, because he always gives him a shout out on the experience, and they always air his ad. And I think Steve Pineau actually represents CM Punk, I believe, as well.
Wow.
So he gets around.
He does.
I don't think he's not an ambulance chaser. I think he's like well credited, not like Lionel Hutz, where the business card is also a sponge.
He's sponge-worthy.
Yeah,
so not. No, apparently. Not in 1995, of course. So let's switch back over to the opening match on Monday Nitro. We have Alex Wright pinning Disco Inferno just over 4 minutes. May I ask why, one, the crowd was super hyped for Alex Wright, and two, why so much pyro for Alex Wright?
I don't remember Alex Wright having any pyro, so this was a surprise to me. He was treated like he was fucking royalty for this one match, and then they just gave up.
By the way, how young does Disco Inferno look?
He's still, it's funny, he's so young, but yet still looks 50. And I mean that with respect. I'm not dogging Disco Inferno. Mm-hmm. I just mean he's looked one age for 30 years.
Yeah. And let me just say, and I'll say this often about Disco Inferno, even Alex Wright, when he had a good opponent, that was a fun 4 minutes. I don't know about you.
Yo, Alex Wright. I always love watching Alex Wright
Yeah.
matches. That dude would just go.
I agree.
They should have
It was
gave him a
fun.
run with the U.S. title, but whatever.
Yeah,
I can't even make excuses for WCW at this point because with them, whenever we talk about them in hindsight, it's always like shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Of course, for sure. Yeah. All right, let's switch over to the other side. But I do want to say that, for the most part in WCW, if I remember correctly, as I watch more Nitros, I've already watched Nitros into November, but I'm going to go back and just rewatch them again because I like just familiarizing myself with a couple months ahead just to try to remember certain things. Alex Wright, for the most part, I think was a heel, but I think that the company the fans hated Disco so much that by default, Alex Wright is like a babyface here.
I think like he was a heel, but like Alex Wright is one of those guys that would kind of flow back and forth between being a heel and being a face, but you really wouldn't notice. It all just depended on who he was in the ring with.
Right.
Because when he was like this Wonder Kid, I assumed that was like a face. I thought that was like a face gimmick until he would get on the mic and be like, "Hey, it's Alex Wright, the German," and then whatever.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the finish. Disco went for a swinging neck breaker, but Alex Wright reversed it into a backslide to get the win. It was Disco's first loss since joining Monday Nitro. But I thought that was a really good finish. And WCW
3 weeks later.
I know 3 weeks later. The undefeated streak is long gone now.
The undefeated streak just like the undefeated streak for VK Wall Street.
Yes.
That never happened.
Never happened.
All that hype for a loss.
On the other side, on the other channel here, like I said, a few days later, though, Skip with Sonny, which is Chris Candido, versus probably for the fourth time in his career already being hired, fired, is the Rocker himself, Marty Jannetty. So your thoughts on this one? Because one, I thought it was a terrific match, and 1995 Sonny.
Hey, listen, we can talk about 1995 Sonny all day.
Yes.
It would literally be the entire podcast. And Dean's a big fan of 1995 Sonny.
I bet.
All the way up until she released an ill-advised video 20 years too late. But listen, Skip and oh my God, why did Marty? I can't believe I'm going to give Marty praise, but Marty was good for what he was.
Dude, Marty was damn good when he
was just a fucking lunatic as soon as he got out of the ring. And he's like, "Hey man, who wants to do bumps of coke with my daughter?" ? Like, yeah, but they did exactly what their job was. Mm-hmm. They got the crowd hot for the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 1995 Sonny was getting that crowd plenty hot.
Yeah, I agree.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Did you see, not to bring up, but since Marty's on this topic, did you see his video about some guy who was accusing Marty Jannetty of like ending his career because the guy took the rocker dropper wrong?
Yeah, that was a big lawsuit.
Yeah, it was like a big lawsuit, but they show the video, it's like, dude, you landed wrong.
Yeah, that's not like on
that's
Marty.
not Marty Jannetty's fault. That's your fault because you're a fucking idiot. It's like those people who like tuck their necks when they get a Styles clash. Yeah. It's like, that's why your neck's broken because you didn't land it properly.
That's right.
As all the things that we could blame on Marty Jannetty, like him breaking barbershop windows because he's a coward and likes to dive through them. This one's not on him.
That's right. You tell him, George.
I'll tell him. No one's going to listen, but I'll tell him.
I will say, and I mean, I don't really pay attention too much sometimes, but Marty Jannetty, although it was a good match, you could tell the dude was a little bit out of shape.
I mean, he wasn't working consistently. Like you said, hired, fired.
I know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's got a WCW stint coming up very shortly. So
he does. Wearing the same outfits.
Yeah, the same music. It's like he owns the rocker song.
That's so funny. Over on the other side, back on WCW, we get a promo. WCW World Champion Hulk Hogan, Jimmy Hart, cut a taped promo where Hogan uses the WCW title as a workout tool for his neck. There's that. Hogan talks about the Giants' personal hygiene, offers him a match for a title at Halloween Havoc. And Hogan pledges to lay the Giant right next to his father, who he also beat in Michigan. So we've already now said, yep, he's the father of the Giant and that he's going to kill him. So we're making a little headway here to more murder in WCW.
Chris, I want to real quick. I just want to veer back to Disco Inferno because we're 1995 Disco Inferno. He's opening Nitro.
Yeah,
he's going to be with WCW right up until the doors close.
Yeah.
So, and I always love when he gives valid criticisms across the board to everybody. Like Disco, if your product is bad, Disco will criticize you. He ran WWE through the weeds for years. I mean, he's doing the same to AEW, and he goes back and forth with it. If he likes something, he'll say it. If he hates something, he does. But everybody goes right at him. It's like, oh, what do you know? You were just a jobber in a company. Yeah, you can say that, but this dude stayed with his company from the time he was hired right up until the doors closed. Still got a pop every single night when he came out.
Yep.
Sorry, that's not someone who's just hanging on, getting by. The dude had a following.
Right.
The dude was fucking popular.
I'll say this, and
revisionist history is a bitch.
And I'll say this about Disco. All the Nitros that I watch, if Disco's there, he's getting a reaction from every crowd he's in front of.
Whether they're booing him because he's, doing a disco gimmick in 1995, or he's getting cheered because it's a fun fucking gimmick and he looks like a low-rent John Travolta.
He does.
Like,
where's Dean when you need him?
He was just commenting. He's waiting for my AEW hitcher, which isn't coming on this episode because I have nothing to say about them this week.
Gene Okerlund interviews Randy Savage, who calls out Lex Luger. Luger runs out to a mixed reaction, challenging Savage to a match next week, willing to give up his title shot against Hulk Hogan that is owed to him from War Games. Luger sweetens the pot further by saying if he does not beat Savage, then he will leave WCW. And of course, Randy Savage accepts. After that, Eric Bischoff's on the announcing desk saying that the Giant will face Hulk Hogan for the WCW title at Halloween Havoc. Your thoughts on these couple big promos here with the big players of the company, and then the announcement of the main event at Halloween Havoc?
If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I really hate when Lex Luger is holding a microphone.
Dude, it's bad. It's bad.
I don't get it. It's like they never learn their lesson, and they're never going to. This man's going to keep doing promos from now until he's done with the company. It's like, dude, you don't have it. You need a mouthpiece. They never gave you one. The closest they gave was they gave Elizabeth, and Elizabeth never fucking spoke.
Yeah,
it's like, you gave him a manager, but you gave him the wrong type of manager.
Right. Over on WWF, we get a video package on last night's triple header match when British Bulldog took Owen Hart's spot, but Owen ran out at the end and got pinned. When we see Mason in the boardroom talking to Gorilla Monsoon, overstating Bulldog was a tag team champion last night, not Owen. Thus, the decision of the match was overturned. And we now learn that the champs will face the Smoking Guns for the WWF tag team titles. And then my favorite part of the entire Monday Night Raw is Michael P.S. Hayes, or Doc Hendricks at the time, just shilling merchandise for the WWE.
Yeah, man. I
remember those days.
That dude was a walking department store. He was just going to sell you whatever as long as it had a logo on it.
Yep.
He didn't even care. Hey, well, with Doc Hendricks here. I got this hat. It's got Shawn Michaels logo on it. You know you want it $29.95. It's like fucking. I guess, man.
That was the best Doc Hendricks expression ever.
Why don't you sell me the hats you're wearing now, Michael P.S. Hayes, and maybe I'll give you $30 for them? Because that dude is somehow just dripping in style, and I don't get it.
What do you mean? He's Michael P.S. Hayes, man. He's a free bird.
The PX stands for purely sausage, because the man's he's all sausage now.
First, next match on the evening for WCW, we got Kurosawa, whatever, with
Yeah.
Colonel Robert Parker beating Sergeant Craig Pittman with a German suplex at 4.5 minutes. Boy, what a second match to have on your live programming.
What a fucking dud.
Yeah,
If I didn't
like,
have the
this is,
pause feature now, like when I watched
Yeah.
this shit, that would have been a bathroom break.
So you're not a fan of Kurosawa at all?
Or Craig Pittman.
Craig Pittman.
I mean, they were like Craig Pittman is basic in the ring at best.
Yeah.
And Kurosawa, I really don't have much of an opinion.
No.
He's there.
Neither. Yeah. WWF Tag Team Championships are on the line here. Owen Hart and Yokozuna versus the Smoking Guns. This was about 10 minutes and 20 seconds. The crowd pops for the finish, though, as the Guns celebrate becoming the new tag team champions. What was your thoughts, man? Not too bad. I just didn't like anything with Yokozuna.
Yeah. A title change on Raw?
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of rare at this point.
Very much so. Yeah.
I mean, it isn't like how it's going to be years from now where it's a weekly occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
But like this was, it had a big moment feel to it. It's like, wow, like you never see a title change on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was,
I know.
It was such a rarity.
Yeah.
I love the Guns. It's like this is like one of Billy Gunn's 45 tag team title reigns.
I actually really like the Smoking Guns. I like their entrance. I like their song.
Oh my yeah. It's a shame that Yokozuna just kind of kept getting bigger and bigger and didn't tone down. It's probably, and I don't want to like chalk it up to the time. Like, yeah, at the time we didn't really know like health advances along those lines,
Mm-hmm.
but even in 95, if someone's just getting fatter, you should be like, hey, we should probably tone this down a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think every time they try to get him on some sort of like exercise or diet regimen, like he would break it. Like he would just kind of sneak out and go shut down a Popeyes or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for a guy like him, that was just average. He doesn't know, at that time, he's just, that's just what he did.
Yeah, there was just no control, and it's unfortunate. After the Guns win, of course, they're celebrating. Shawn Michaels and Diesel randomly head into the ring to celebrate with the Guns.
Yeah, why not?
As we hear a term that Vince McMahon said for about 9 million times, anything can happen in the WWF. So
it was a tick. It was like when the other place would say where the big boys play.
Yeah, I love when the big boys play, though. It's so funny because
you got to get those taglines in so that way you remember. Anything can happen in the WWF, and WCW is where the big boys play.
Yeah,
but not anything can happen in WCW, and the big boys do not play in WWF.
No.
Play the adjective. Play. Nash says it himself. We don't play. I'm sorry. I'm not. Am I speaking? You tell me when I'm telling lies.
God. So we stay with WWF here. We get a hype video for next week's Bret the Hitman Hart versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte.
Yeah, man.
And Jean-Pierre stole Bret Hart's jacket. That son of a bitch.
It was after he took the sunglasses off that little kid.
Oh man, that's a WrestleMania main event anywhere in the world.
What a jerk off.
What a jerk. But he's Canadian, right? So Bret loves him.
And then you have that piece of shit Bill Goldberg.
And then you get the promo for Razor Ramon versus 1-2-3 Kid. Then we get, Doc Hendricks is in the aisle with Gorilla Monsoon. He's asked, he asked about finding out last night at the In Your House will feature, the next In Your House will feature Undertaker versus King Mabel. And will also feature Goldust's in-ring debut. This is where we are in 1995, man. We're getting the debut of Goldust. How crazy is that?
It's been so many weeks of promos just leading up to this debut. Real hype.
Yeah. This is so crazy that this is where we are, that we're seeing Goldust's in-ring debut. Gorilla says that he has more to announce. I know. He has more to announce for that show, too, and that the British Bulldog will get his wish and have a chance at the world title against Diesel. Plus, Bret Hart had signed a contract to face whoever as world champion at Survivor Series. And then plus we will get Shawn versus Dean Douglas for the Intercontinental title. But will we?
I don't think so.
Oh, there's a little spoiler. On the other side, WCW, Mean Gene Okerlund interviews Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman, 2/4 of the Four Horsemen, the new Four Horsemen. Pillman hypes Anderson's abilities, while Anderson chides and just criticizes Ric Flair's inability to find a teammate. Anderson says that Flair reaped what he sowed since he turned on everyone, and no one is dumb enough to work with him now. What was your thoughts, man, on the Four Horsemen? It just was just a hodgepodge of things. It felt like in the mid-'90s, where if they would have just did it right the first time, I felt like the Horsemen would have had a longer reign or a longer lifespan in WCW. I think you and I have talked before
We
feel like WCW really dropped the ball with the Four Horsemen.
Well, I can answer that with 2 words, Chris. Hulk Hogan.
Oh, but he had no creative control.
He didn't pull. That's right. He didn't pull his creative control card. Silly me. But like you're absolutely right. The Horsemen should have been bigger, and it felt just kind of like it felt like a mess. Is where this was. I can't even call it a hodgepodge. Yeah. This is just we don't know what to do with any of these guys, so we're gonna just say fuck it and just do whatever. Yeah. Because even if you have the Horsemen, they're kind of like running roughshod. Eventually, they have to run into Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
And concerning WCW did a lot of Southern shows.
Mm-hmm.
The Horsemen are gonna out cheer Hogan in the South, hands down.
Yeah,
and Hogan, that doesn't work for him, brother.
Never. No. Why would it ever?
I mean, you even saw in '98 when the Horsemen reformed. It didn't go after the NWO. The Horsemen never went after the NWO. I'm sure at some point they mixed up when like Nash was mocking Arn Anderson for the whole spot thing. That was like as close as we ever really got.
Mm-hmm.
To the NWO and the Horsemen.
Absolutely. And it was just, I don't know. I actually did like the version of Anderson, Flair, Pillman, and Benoit. I thought that was pretty badass.
That was a good, like, well-rounded version of the Horsemen. I mean, I can't say there hasn't been a bad version of the Horsemen because Paul Roma was in one of them. So the answer to that is there has been a bad version.
Yeah. I thought Sid didn't belong in either.
No, not really.
He didn't need the Four Horsemen.
No, and the Horsemen definitely didn't need Sid.
No.
I don't mean it. I don't mean that in the negative. I mean, like they're 2 big name like players. They don't really need each other. The Horsemen should be feuding with Sid, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
Next match here in WCW, Kevin Sullivan with our main man Zodiac beats Randy Savage via disqualification when Savage tosses the referee at 3 minutes. Just another continuation of just bad Randy Savage matches in the early lifespan here of Monday Nitro.
This can't be all Randy's fault.
Definitely not Randy's. If this was up to Randy, I'm sure this is not how things would end.
No.
But I just
it was facing
awful.
Fucking Kevin Sullivan, the goddamn Zodiac.
Dude, I'll tell you what, it's embarrassing at this time watching Sullivan and Zodiac in the ring. Like, it's embarrassing.
It's just,
Bischoff made fun. Bischoff would make fun of Raw being cartoon kitty bullshit. May I ask what the whole Dungeon of Doom is?
Yeah, man, that's what. I mean, if you want to go that route, and I know I just praise the guy, but Disco Inferno, I mean, a 70s disco dancer gimmick.
Yeah.
That's right up there with, like TL Hopper and.
Well, we're also like weeks away from the Yeti.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
let's kind of relax there a little bit, Eric, and realize, you kind of were doing the same hokey bullshit.
yeah, there was hokey nonsense all over the place.
Of course. Yeah.
So for him to sit there and be like, "Oh, we're not going to do the cartoony bullshit," and then here comes fucking Brutus Beefcake with his face painted, saying only saying yes and no, because that's what the Zodiac. When I think of the Zodiac,
his best promo,
I think of only 2 words, not the 12 fucking signs of the Zodiac.
After the bell, Savage slams Sullivan on top of the Zodiac and goes for the flying elbow, but Sullivan moves as the Zodiac takes the elbow right to the chest. Then the Giant comes out and gives Savage chokeslam. And then after that, what do we have here? What did I write down? Oh, I'm sorry. Frankie Lancaster and Mark Starr come out and get chokeslammed. Alec Wright dives off the top rope. He gets slammed. Now it's Lex Luger's turn.
What a gauntlet to run through. How did the Giant get past Frankie Lancaster?
And Mark Starr, boy.
Oh, man.
Really putting the stakes against the Giant here. Lex Luger, who took his grand ass old time getting to the ring,
Well,
as Savage takes a second choke slam.
the Donna Ball didn't hit the legs yet. So
That's correct. That's right. That's so funny. Savage takes a second choke slam. He stares over at Luger, but the Giant does a sneak attack. Luger tries to fight him off, but the slam attempt goes nowhere. He eats a choke slam as well. I will say, though, regardless of who's in the ring, this was a really good way to put over the Giant as a legit monster, right?
Yes. But at the same time, he took out Macho, Luger, and 2 perennial jobbers. So,
yeah,
I mean, he kind of looks strong, but at the same point, I mean, if you really want to make him look like some sort of threat, instead of having Frankie Lancaster and Mark Starr come out, why not just have the Steiners or Harlem Heat? Have like an established tag team come out to also say, oh, it's like these bigger name players are having a hard time with the Giant.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you. That's a good point. Over on WWF, British Bulldog versus The Undertaker. Boy, that's, dude, I'm telling you right now.
That's a main event anywhere. I'm
so giddy watching these Raws, getting to see like that purple Undertaker every single week. God, I just love it so much. This match ends at around 7:35 with a disqualification. Bulldog then picks up the Undertaker for a running power slam, and then Mabel drops the leg on him. Another official runs out, but here we are. Shawn and Diesel are back out for the second time of the night to clear the ring, and then Owen and Yokozuna come out too. But so do the new tag team champion Smoking Guns. This was something, man.
We just criticized how like Frankie Lancaster and Mark Starr came out.
Yeah.
And now I got my wish over on the other channel.
Yeah.
Where other big name players come out. Although I'm not exactly certain why any of those people came out at all.
Yeah.
That was a singles match. I mean, I get maybe Owen and Yoko because they're in Camp Cornette.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't come out until Diesel and Shawn came out.
I know.
And they're not exactly friends with The Undertaker.
Yeah. And then we get to the end of Raw here, and it just gets kind of weird because you go to a commercial break. As you're going to the commercial break, there's an ad for WrestleMania 11, which is pretty cool. But then you come back into the ring. Diesel, Shawn, Smoking Guns, The Undertaker, they're all in the ring. Bart Gunn looks like he literally just ran from the shower to get to the ring here.
He always looks like that.
Yeah, it's true. Especially after Butterbean. Diesel's music is playing. And then we return from another break, as now it's just Diesel and Shawn in the ring with Shawn's theme song playing. Shawn's dancing with the WWF logo spotlight on him. Diesel's in the corner. This is just odd. Like, why are we ending the show with this and just, clips from what's going to be on next week? Like, it's weird.
I don't know. It's one thing to hype up your next show, and I get it. But you did 2 commercial breaks when all you had were just people posing in the ring.
That's it.
Have Vince in there with the microphone, talk to somebody, be like, "Hey, Shawn, why'd you come down here, pal?" Like give me anything.
Or next week you have Bret Hart. You're advertising Bret Hart for next week. Why are you not just have a quick in-ring promo with Bret or anything?
Because Bret's not there. Bret's in Bahrain.
He has to be.
If he's not at Raw, he's in Bahrain. That's a known fact.
Yeah.
That's where he went after he lost the title to Sean in the Iron Man match.
They show a clip from last night's Razor Ramon versus Dean Douglas match where Razor and Kid got into a confrontation back afterwards when Ken trolled Razor by counting a pin. Lawler says he heard a rumor of Kid negotiating with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And then the show ends. What the hell is that? Look, I thought it was a good show, actually. They focused a lot on the current storylines from the past In Your House, but they also are starting to put a lot of emphasis in the rivalries that they're trying to build for the weeks to come, which was fine. There was no time-filling squash matches, which I really liked. Yeah. Everything had a point, and it sets up 2 good matches for next week. We already talked about that. The Pirate and Brett, and then Razor and 1, 2, 3 Kid. This was the first Raw under, by the way, everyone, this was the first Raw under the Bill Watts regime. And so far, so good. Because you kind of got a sense of who he wanted to push. And we got that because, for the last 10 minutes of the show, it's Diesel and Sean. But what were your overall thoughts on Monday Night Raw before we get to the main event of Nitro?
I thought it was pretty interesting because if it's something where you're kind of flipping back and forth between Nitro and Raw, and obviously on this day you're not because they're on 2 different channels,
right?
But it's the same. It's the same thing with Nitro. Nitro's got the Maximum Wrestling audience for that Monday. However, they don't exactly have the maximum audience because they are going up against Monday Night Football because it is Monday.
Right.
Now, over on Thursday, they don't have because the Thursday games weren't a thing yet, clearly. But they have like the Maximum Wrestling audience. So you end your show, you got, at the very least, in the last like 10 minutes of your show, you got Taker, Bulldog, Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Diesel, Shawn Michaels. Like, those are big name players in your company.
Yes,
and they're ending the show. They're basically letting everybody know, hey, these are the guys that are here every week. Like, these are the guys who are going to end the show. These are, even like funneling in Diesel and Razor or Diesel and Sean, you're basically just letting people know, hey, they're still here. Your world champion and your Intercontinental champion are still here. They're in the building. And they're kind of just putting them out front and center. Now, over on the other show, we got, job matches and horrible promos. And we know Hogan's a champ, but we don't see the tag team champions. We don't see the U.S. champion.
Nope.
What storylines on Nitro are they doing to make me want to keep watching them going forward? Yeah. I know, at this point, I know, they're still getting their footing, and Raw's already been on for 2 years or 2.5 years at this point. So they already have an idea of how to run a weekly show. Eric Bischoff had no idea how to run a weekly show. He eventually got the hang of it, but these first few months are rough as shit.
Very much so. Very much so. Main event here for the WCW Monday Nitro. Ming pins Lex Luger after hitting him with a golden spike at just under 7 minutes. During this, Bischoff tells fans that Hulk Hogan will be on Monday Nitro next week after seeing the Giant wipe out 5 guys in that last segment. Luger still selling that previous beating as Ming rushes to the ring to get this one started. But yeah, Ming works a lot of rest holds, just boring stuff. You have 2 of the most boring wrestlers in the main event right here. But look, they're just trying to further push a storyline with Lex Luger.
That's also probably not Ming or Lex's call to have all those rest holds.
No.
Ming will fight 10 people in a bar while one hand holds a mug of full beer that is not spilling a drop as he's beating the shit out of 10 other people.
Yeah.
He doesn't need a rest hold.
No.
He needs an arm rest for his arm and his beer because his arm's getting tired.
Yeah. So not a great not a great main event. I think the goal of this show, and this is my final word here on Nitro, I think they found something really unique with the Giant here. And I think they did a great job making him look like a monster, regardless of who's in the ring. They still did a good job making him look like an uncontrollable, unbeatable beast. I thought the Lex Luger, Randy Savage interactions were carrying the show in Hulk Hogan's absence, and guys in that mid card were putting on pretty serviceable matches. Like we talked about, that Alex Wright disco match was really entertaining. However, though, man, same shit. I mean, from 95 to the end with WCW, the last two matches, including the main event, were awful to watch. I mean, do you agree or disagree?
It was just bad. It was bad. And this episode of Nitro follows the previous weeks, which was where they show Macho Man doing the workout on the beach and Kevin Sullivan coming up and choking him out.
Yeah.
When he's working out. Now, this is the one that Dean always says happens on the episode of Thunder in Paradise. But I think he's mixing the two of them up.
Yeah.
Because I always thought it was too, the way he says it, until I saw that clip. I was like, oh shit, this was Nitro. I think we always just assume. I mean, yeah, it was supposed to be like a Baywatch tie-in, but that episode wasn't going to air for another 6 months.
Yeah, that was, I mean.
So they were no doubt filming it because you had like sort of long-haired David Chokichi with a random cameo, but none of the other like women who were on Baywatch were there. They were just other like attractive blondes wearing the swimsuits that had the Baywatch patch on them. Which
the ratings here, obviously, again, not on the same night, but Nitro drew a really good 2.7 here. God, WWE would kill for a 2.7 in 2024. Raw on Thursday drew a 1.9. When we get to next week's head-to-head matchup, I mean, it was basically a tie. Both had a 2.5 rating next week, and we're going to talk about that one next week. But overall, at the end of the day, George, like we always say, we're going to review both shows. Which show was better, obviously, in terms of ratings, even though they were on a different day. Monday Nitro still prevailed with a really good rating. Overall, it was a better show, Nitro or Monday Night Raw?
Between the two of them, watch them objectively, Raw was the better show.
I agree. Start to finish.
I mean, it's gonna be that way for a little bit until Nitro gets its footing, until they learn how to do weekly episodic TV to keep you tuned in.
Yeah. I still think both shows had a terrible main event. Monday Night Raw was in this weird time in 95, George, where they wasted so much time at the end of their shows.
Yeah. I don't know what was going on.
No, I just didn't like it at all. But yes, obviously they weren't head to head, but the rating was higher for Nitro. We both think that Raw had the better show. But next week, we'll be here to cover the September 30th editions of Monday Nitro. I'm sorry, the October 2nd versions of WCW Monday Nitro and WWF Monday Night Raw. Before we head out of here, George, your final word. Is there anything you want to talk about?
Nothing really. The Vince McMahon documentary does come out this week. Chris, you had already told me and Gro that you have no intention of watching it.
No.
I am going to watch it because I'm just curious. I've seen so many things on just Mr. McMahon in general, the character of Mr. McMahon. I was looking forward to this because I'm like, you know what? They're going to like tell me something about like Vince, about like the character of Vince McMahon, not who he was on TV, but who he is backstage. And we always hear the rumors about how he is. You know, he's very cold, you know, unless he's talking to like certain wrestlers he likes, and he's very, you know, then he'll talk to people. But like when he's like doing business or when he's writing a show, he's like pencil to paper, 100% dialed in, focusing him and the writers, and they are just on. Like I've heard Cornette talk about, you know, like when they would just be writing, like Vince would never stop. Like he wouldn't even pause to like eat. Like I think he'd have like a sandwich, he'd take a bite out of it. And he said that every time Vince took a bite of something, he looked angry because he'd have to stop working because he'd have to put food in his mouth to like stay alive. Like Vince just ate for necessity, not because he was like, "Ooh, this looks good." He's like, "Oh, I guess I have to. I'm going to die this week."
Yeah, it was fuel. It wasn't something
it was
he
fuel.
wanted.
Exactly. So I was interested in hearing about that, but apparently from what he put out in that Twitter post, which Vince never posts anything on Twitter.
Never.
So I was like, Okay. And then he put up this long thing saying how they took some liberties, which most documentarians do.
Of
They're going to
course.
take some documentarians. But from what he was saying there, it seems as though the way this was cultivated was that the people doing the documentary don't know the difference between Vince McMahon, the person, and then the character of Mr. McMahon.
Yes.
But
so
I'm interested after he put that. I'm like, you know what? Now I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. I wonder like where they're like getting confused. And like, oh, I can't believe he made somebody kiss his ass on TV. It's like, all right, that wasn't actually Vince. That's the character. Like that's
mhm.
that's what that was. I wonder. I'm curious to see where that goes.
Yeah. For
Uh,
those who didn't see the statement by Vince McMahon, I will read it for you
oh,
right now,
will you
verbatim.
will you do your best Vince McMahon voice, pal?
Oh, I will not do that.
All right.
So this is Vince McMahon and at Vince McMahon on Twitter. I don't regret participating in the Netflix documentary. The producers had an opportunity to tell an objective story about my life and the incredible business I built, which were equally filled with excitement, drama, fun, and a fair amount of controversy and life lessons. Unfortunately, based on an early partial cut I've seen, this doc falls short and takes a predictable path of conflating the Mr. McMahon character with my true self, Vince. The title and promos alone make that evident. A lot has been misrepresented or left out entirely in an effort to leave viewers intentionally confused. This sounds like a legal letter he used to send to Ted Turner.
Yeah, it looks like he used a typewriter too.
Right? The producers used typical editing tricks with out of context footage and dated sound bites, etc., to distort the viewer's perception and support a deceptive narrative. In an attempt to further their misleading account, the producers use a lawsuit based on an affair I ended as evidence that I am, in fact, Mr. McMahon. I hope the viewer will keep an open mind and remember that there are two sides to every story.
Well then.
Well, we'll find out, I guess, right?
I guess also in wrestling news, Miro. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
He used to be Rusev when he was on TV.
Mm-hmm.
He has asked for his release from AEW, which I didn't know that he did until I was thinking to myself, I haven't seen Miro in a while. I did a Google search of him because I was curious. I'm like, is he injured? What's going on? And then as I do it, as I scroll, like the first thing that comes up is like he asked for his release, or no, I looked at it on his Wikipedia, and I scrolled like towards the end of like the professional wrestling section and said, "Oh, September 20th, he asked for his release." And I looked up like my phone for the date. I was like, "Oh, that's today." All right, so this just happened. And from what I gather, just using my own kind of knowledge, his last match was at World's End.
Yes.
So last December for AEW
it's been that long
against Andrade, who is currently in WWE and has been for several months.
That's crazy.
Probably since he came back at the Royal Rumble in January.
Oh my God. I did not know that was that long ago.
I thought maybe he was injured, but I'm assuming they weren't using him. But from what the Twitter bots were saying, because now that someone has asked for the release from AEW, they are now public enemy number one. Guess that's how that works.
I guess that's
apparently they didn't want to do business with a lot of people. But from also what I understand was they were trying to build him up like a monster heel. Unfortunately, you can't be a monster heel if you're losing to guys like Jack Perry and Darby Allin.
Yeah,
and I don't mean to slight them as wrestlers, but I mean to slight them as how they look compared to how Miro looks. Miro looks like a fucking god, and he's got bulging biceps. Like he looks the part of a wrestler. Jack Perry, Darby Allin are 150 soaking wet with rocks in their pockets. They shouldn't be getting easy wins over somebody like that. And I guess that's where his issue was, because he's like, this doesn't make any sense. And Tony's probably like, okay. And then just paid him to stay home, which is a shame. Because I mean, he's also going through that. He was going through that divorce with Lana, which I know they were together for quite a while. So that probably took a bit of a toll on him, because, she goes out and flaunts her shit all over the place. So he's probably like, oh, all right. And who knows? Maybe he just wants to kind of get away from all the wrestling and not be under anyone's corporate banner and just kind of live his life quietly.
Mm-hmm.
Or he sees what's going on now in WWE and he's like, I want to be a part of that. Let me ask for my release because they signed me to a 5-year deal when Triple H took charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then didn't do anything with him.
I know people are we're in the era now where if somebody gets let go, one of the companies have to sign them. I'm just going to let everybody know that I don't want Miro to be signed. I don't want anyone else to be signed because guess what? Raw is moving to 2 hours on Netflix. SmackDown will be 3 hours, like not long. It's not going to be that way. It's going to stay 2 hours eventually. They're going to have to be getting rid of a lot of talent and not signing talent. WWF is going to have to finally, after a decade of signing everybody in the world, they're going to have to lower that roster a lot and work with what you got.
Or they're going to have, because I know why I saw this, we were like, oh, they're going to start letting a lot of people go. It's like, but if SmackDown's going to 3 hours, they'll probably just shift more people over to SmackDown. Or they'll start funneling people down to NXT and maybe do a freeze on the younger people that they're bringing in.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, also, they also have that partnership with TNA right now. So they could like funnel some people down to TNA and be like, hey, you know, we'll let you use these guys for X amount of time. Like, do whatever you want with them.
Yeah.
Which I think that's where Miro should go. He can go to TNA and just run that fucking company as a top heel.
Yeah, he would do pretty well there. I also think when he gets back, which apparently is going to be soon, I think Matt Cardona is going to make some noise.
You think so?
In TNA? Yeah, I do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna show up on SmackDown in not this Friday, but next Friday.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Chelsea Green has a dumpster match, which I have not seen a dumpster match in years. So okay, against Micha and Mia Yim. So I think maybe he might show up in that match.
Yeah. He
pulling the internet championship out of the dumpster, going woo woo woo.
Going. All right. Well, that'll wrap up this edition of the Hot Tag Wrestling Show. If you guys like what you've seen and what you listened to, what you heard, head over to YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, ring that bell for notifications when there's a new show coming here live or pre-recorded. Thank you guys so very much for the support. I think the last episode that we posted here for the show about 2 weeks ago did very well, like very well. So thank you guys to everybody for tuning in. We are just so appreciative of that. So next week, week 4 of the War Room, as we just go back in time, we rewind and look back and debate and review every episode in order of the Monday Night Wars from Monday Nitro and Monday Night Raw. George, thank you so very much, man. Hope everybody has a great rest of your week. Take care, and we'll see you all later. Bye-bye.